Okay, let's get started. So, my name is Esperanza Guzman, and I worked with Daniel Fingold on Alan Wigfield's expectancy value theory. So, Alan Wigfield is obviously the creator of this theory. He performed his postdoctorate studies at the University of Illinois, and he was heavily inspired by his fellow students and colleagues, especially Jackie Eccles, whose work mainly focused on issues such as gender studies, and whom Wigfield worked with on an article titled Motivational Beliefs, Values, and Goals, which was published in 2002. Wigfield was also heavily influenced by Ken Hill and Steve Asher, whom Wigfield worked with on an article titled Social and Motivational Influences on Reading. So what is the expectancy value theory? Well, the expectancy value theory is a theory that tries to explain why people make the choices that they do, especially in regards to the classroom. It involves analyzing the motivational factors and behaviors people have for choosing to or not to pursue a certain activity or behavioral pattern. It also teaches that people make the choices that they do for specific reasons based on four main principles, which we're about to get to. So the principles of this theory are interest value, attainment value, utility value, and cost. Outcome expectations and efficacy expectations also play an important role in this theory. So, interest value is a measure of how much enjoyment a person, and in our case a student, gets from a certain task or activity which they're performing. So if a child loves being in art class and they love to paint and they love to draw, but they don't really love being in science class or math class, then they may put in more effort in the art class than they do in the science or the math class. Attainment value is how important the activity is to the individual and how it can be tied to their personal identity. So this is a matter of self-enrichment. How important does it feel to the student? How connected do they feel to a particular subject? If a student finds themselves loving to write and loving to read, and they find enjoyment and personal growth from those things, then they may put in more effort into their reading and their writing, their English classes, than they do into their history classes or their science classes or their math classes or any other class. Utility value is the usefulness of the activity. So if a child says, I'm going to be a historian when I grow up, a history teacher if you were me, you would turn around and say, I don't need math class. I don't need to know long division. I don't need to know multiplications. I don't need to know algebra. I'm going to be a history teacher. What do I need all this math for? And so with that thought pattern, you put way more effort into the history class than you do the math class. And finally, the cost. What is it going to cost a student to perform an activity? So how much does a student believe they'll need to suffer? How much do they think they'll need to exert themselves in order to achieve this task? And additionally, what are the consequences of it going to be? So if a student loves math and they find it enjoyable and they know it's very, very important, but they also know that socially it's nerdy to enjoy math so much, then they may choose to pursue they may choose to fulfill their social life rather than their academic life. That is to say, put their social life above their academic life. So according to the theory, the most direct influences on performance and choice are individual beliefs on an individual's belief on how well they're going to perform in different areas and activities in life, and the values and incentives those activities hold for them. It's also a theory that is heavily involved in learning and delving deeper into how motivational influences can influence an individual's performance in different activities, and how it can influence their choices of which activities they pursue. So a great example of this is going to be a student who loves their science class, but really, really, really hates their English class. And so they will spend hours and hours on their science homework getting it just right, doing the experiments over and over, and making sure their papers are perfect and proofread and they look beautiful. And then when it comes time to do their English homework, they kind of just run through it as fast as they can because they don't want to do it. They just want to get it over and done with. So another instance is motivating factors regarding this decision, which involves skills and aptitude regarding the choices and the expected outcome. So this is to say, for example, a student needs to do an assignment, and they know it has to be done, and they know it's valuable, and they know it will help them later on in life, but they just feel like they're not going to do well on it. That like they may not even, there's really no point in doing it because they're pretty sure they're going to fail it anyway, so what's the point of trying? And this leads us into outcome expectations and efficacy expectations. Outcome expectations are expectations that a given behavior will achieve a certain outcome, and efficacy expectations are an individual's expectations that a certain outcome will occur. So these two can kind of run together and create this vicious cycle if the student isn't careful with how they think to themselves. So let's say a student goes into school and they've been thinking ever since they were very, very young, I'm so bad at math, I'm so bad at math, I hate math so much, I'm so bad at it, it's so hard, I hate math. Well, then they go into school and they find themselves hating the subject, they find themselves anxious to go to class, they find themselves anxious to do their homework, they find themselves frustrated, and it just reinforces that negative voice in their head, and so it becomes this vicious cycle of they do bad on something, they tell themselves they're doing bad on something, and then they do bad on it. And then they tell themselves, of course you did bad on it because you're bad at this, and then they turn around and do it, just continue to do badly. Vice versa, if a student throughout their formative years is told, oh no, you can totally do this, you're so awesome at math, just give it a shot, you're doing so well at this, I'm so impressed with you, this is awesome, you are doing such good work, then they go into class and they have that voice in the back of their head saying, oh, you can do this is easy, you got this is no big thing, you got this. Then they are telling themselves that positive outcome expectation. And they're turning around and achieving those positive expectations. Oops, skipped a slide. Okay, so this theory has very deep roots in educational psychology because this theory highlights the importance of social cognitive variables, such as beliefs and values that relate to a student's motivations, as well as their cultural and environmental influences and how that can also affect their motivation. It's also one of the most important theories regarding the nature of achievement and motivation. So, this theory has provided the foundation for research on a variety of topics, including, but certainly not limited to, the psychological and social determinants of academic success, the pursuit of advanced educational opportunities, and the pursuit of a particular career path by certain students. So about 2010, some expectancy value researchers began to realize that historically predictive interactions between values and experiences in explaining achievement-related behaviors weren't being actively tested, and there wasn't as much emphasis on field research. So since then, several studies have documented the interaction between academic expectancies and values in predicting science-related activities and career plans. So as a summary, the expectancy value theory's basic premise is that individuals choose to engage in activities and tasks that have high value to them and at which they expect to succeed. Additionally, an interactive association implies that if an activity is perceived as doable but not worth doing, or worth doing but not achievable, individuals are more unlikely to engage in this activity. This is to say, if you put a paper in front of a child and you say, this test is really easy, a first grader could do it, no problem, and there's no grade. It doesn't matter if you take it or not because I'm not going to grade it and it's not going to affect you at all. Then the student would see no worth in spending their time doing the test. Likewise, if you set a paper down in front of a student and said, wow, this is the hardest test I've ever seen, I don't think a person with 3 PhDs could get through this, this is the hardest thing I've ever seen, but, if you choose to take this test, and if you get 100 on it, then you're going to get a free ride scholarship to any school of your choice. Well, then the child is going to say, but I can't do it. It's worth it. It's got a great reward attached to it, but I can't do it. You've just told me it's impossible for someone of my education level and someone of my maturity level to get through, so what's the point of even trying? As teachers, our goal has to be to walk the line between achievable, doable, and worthy. If an activity, if a lesson plan is not worth the student's time, it doesn't matter how easy it is or how hard it is, because it's not worth their time. It's not going to stick with them for the rest of their lives. Likewise, if something is worth their time, but it's far above their head and they don't quite understand what's going on, then it's still not a good lesson plan. It's still not going to be a helpful lesson because the students aren't going to be able to fully grasp the concept. So as teachers, we have to always keep in mind that the motivation of our students is one of the most important things because it leads to their achievement. So, thank you. That has been our presentation.